Today, this is all about Performance Summit. That's why you are here. You're focusing on VDI.
And anytime there's a lot of hype like that, we tend to be the folks that people come to. We're always up for trying something new at Login VSI.
But the most important thing in optimizing your image is know what you're doing.
Understand the application. That is the first thing you need to do before you understand what you use to it.
Today, this is all about Performance Summit. That's why you are here. You're focusing on VDI.
And anytime there's a lot of hype like that, we tend to be the folks that people come to. We're always up for trying something new at Login VSI.
But the most important thing in optimizing your image is know what you're doing.
Understand the application. That is the first thing you need to do before you understand what you use to it.
Hello everyone, and thank you for joining the 4th Login VSI VDI Performance Summit. Little over a year ago, when we were thinking about doing our own event, we were dreaming about getting 50 people together in a room and geek out on end-user computing. Lo and behold, 250 of you showed up. But there were also many people that could not attend in Amsterdam. This inspired us to also do a community-style virtual event. A year ago, we did the first one with almost 1,000 attendees, free for all, thanks to our great sponsors. This year, we're seeing roughly the same numbers, but all is different. You're probably at home, and instead of in the office, I'm in my garage. Nevertheless, we are going to do our best to bring you a great event, and glancing at the agenda and the topics that we've got for you today, I expect a day packed with technical content, inspiring keynotes, and let's not forget the virtual expo, where you can start a chat with our sponsors and the experts at any time. At the virtual expo, you can also meet my colleagues, and if you're interested in application load or compatibility testing, make sure to start a chat. They've got a lot of great news for you. Lastly, If you are in a pickle and need information on change management, scaling your work from home environment, either on premises or in the cloud quickly, hit up my colleagues on the Expo. We're happy to share what we've learned the last few weeks. And now, without further ado, our first speaker. Normally, he's always on the run, but today dialing in from his own house that, by the looks of it, is part of the matrix. Take it away and have fun, Ruben.
Hey, thanks. Thanks for watching and thanks for joining this session. Become the Q of James Bond with great insights in workspace, workplace developments. My name is Ruben. I'm the senior technologist at Nutanix, and roughly 30 minutes I will walk you through my point of view in work developments. So we are all Q of James Bond, and maybe you recognize these movies with this crazy guy inventing all kinds of gear technology to help James Bond. And we are also Q in our James Bond, because our goal is to make the end user super productive. Well, that's the goal, right? That's our end goal. And at this VDI Performance Summit, the focus is performance. And performance, from my point of view, is two things. Is technology, so products, solutions, services, knowledge, but also performance is around the individual, about you and about me and about we, about us. And you, me, we, plus technology is what I think is Q. And so to become Q in James Bond of end user computing, you need to be great from a technology perspective, and also from a personal perspective, you need to be in the right balance. And maybe it's a little bit strange to start this VDI Performance Summit keynote with that approach, like personal side and technology side. And don't be afraid, I will talk about technology in some minutes from now, but I think it's really important to focus on the personal side as well. So I want to share my quick personal review with you. Of course, when you look at like Insta or when you look at Facebook or Twitter, we always post the nice pictures, like family pictures, the nice parties, the nice events, the nice holidays, the nice business trips, the crazy parties with the family, the time you spend with kids and family. I'm blessed with 3 kids and a great family. And yeah, I'm really fortunate from that perspective. But there's always, I wouldn't say always, but there's always something people are not tweeting about. So everybody is fighting a battle they're not tweeting about. And it applies to me as well. My, I would say, sort of quote is, if you love what you do, you never have to work a day in your life. It's a super strength. It's really powerful if that is the case. And that is the case for me, but also a huge challenge and also a risk for me personally. Why? Because personal identity is attached to my work. So my identity is very connected to work. And there's much more than work. Finding the right balance in work and family is my biggest struggle, if you ask me. So that is something it's not so common to tweet about that. And that's why it's important to share at this event, because again, personal plus technology is Q. And be a great dad, who is your example? And being a great family member is not always easy for me. I'm blessed with a great wife who helps me finding the balance, and once in a while steps on the brake if I'm going too fast. And it's also important, that's why I'm sharing it. It's also important to share your challenges with family and friends, with community friends. And also count your blessings every day. That is what helps me, especially in challenging times, to stay positive and to stay focused on the right things. So for me, there is no discussion about there's no work-life balance. And for me to achieve balance is to integrate work-life as the viable option. And that's why I think it's important to focus when you do work from home, when you work from home more often, to have the right mindset, the right tools, the right ideas to work from home successfully. I wrote a blog post. You will see a little bit, if you search for that, or if you follow me on social media, you will find that blog post where I explain these tips to work from home. These are my tips to work from home. And finally, I think everyone is a rock star in one context and just a member of audience in another. So stay humble, be nice, be happy, and cheer for others when they have their moment. I think that will make life much easier for all of us. So let's focus on the technology side. So Performance Summit is technology, and Performance Summit is also you and me, us. Of course, the running joke for the last, I don't know, years and years is the year of. So 2020, 2021 is the year of, well, the Dutch soccer team winning Euro 2020 or 2021. That's probably the right approach. Also, this is the year of Tesla Cybertruck. And this is the year of desktop as a service. I'll talk about that a little bit more. And there's always like a small like wing about the year of, right? You get the point. But for sure, it's the year of VMware taking over Citrix role of being king in crazy name changes. Do you know why? Anyone in any idea what this is? This is the real product name. VMware Horizon Cloud with a long name. So not sure when, but pretty sure this long name will change, and it's fun to make fun of it, right? So start the day with a smile, and hopefully this is the day with this is the start of your day with a smile. But also this is the year of AMD. AMD not only from a CPU perspective, but also the year of GPU perspective. Especially with GPUs in public cloud in Azure, it's great to see AMD entering that space. With slicing of GPUs in public cloud, and Azure is the first platform where AMD will be using slicing of GPUs using SRIOV, and which is great. It will unlock new use cases. New use cases. It's great because it adds more competition in that space, and hopefully soon we'll also see AMD entering the on-premises space. It's healthy to have competition and healthy for us all. And for sure, unfortunately, this is the year of work from home. Why unfortunately? Because of virus, because of COVID-19, many of us do need to work from home or are working from home. And for some of us, that is, I would say, normal. Like me, to be honest, it's very common to work from home. That's why I wrote a blog post and shared that blog post. That's why I created this top tips to work from home. But also for many of us, it's not common and challenging, and really challenging. And great from an end user computing perspective is to support, I would say, people across the globe with work from home technology to make work from home easier so they can access apps and data from every device, from every location. So what technologies will affect VDI, virtual desktop infrastructure, and desktop as a service in 2020 to 2023? Yeah, that's an interesting question. And I think these 7 topics are core topics to, I would say, focus on and understand in modern workspace developments. So the modern workspace will use these 7 topics. And for this VDI Performance Summit, I picked 4 of these topics. Not because I don't like the 7, I do like the 7, but just because, yeah, time constraints or time limits. We have roughly 30 minutes, and yeah, 30 minutes you can just cover 4. So the first one is Win 7, and the Win 7 connection to Windows 10, or maybe we should just remove the number 10, because Microsoft is updating Windows in a fast pace. So twice a year, a couple of times a year, we'll have a new version of Windows. So we call it Windows 10. That's fine, but you get the point. And Windows 7 is, it's a classic platform, and still a platform many of us use. A little bit later, I'll talk about VDI-like-a-pro.com, which is a great community project with Mark and with Christian we run. And that project is all around survey information. When we ask the question, what kind of OS do you use for your virtualization, for your virtual apps and desktops platform? Windows 10 is, I would say, has taken over Windows 7. But still, there are quite some deployments and quite some usage of Windows 7. So it's our task upcoming years to where possible, move from Win 7 to Windows 10. So, but also with Microsoft and Azure and WVD, there's I would say new OS, a Win 10 enterprise multi-session, which is a great approach. The downside of that approach, well, downside from an industry community perspective, is that that OS is focused and targeted specifically for Azure and WVD. If you ask me personally, to make Windows 10 and Windows 10 Enterprise multi-session even more successful, I truly believe from different angles, from a tech perspective, but also from another perspective, that we all should be able to use Win 10 Enterprise multi-session, both on-premises and public cloud. And not Azure and Azure Stack Hub, but all public clouds and all on-premises type deployments. That is not the case today, but yeah, we'll see what future will bring. Second topic is around virtual desktops and apps, and specifically around desktop as a service. Desktop as a service has its core. And what is the desktop as a service core? I think it's important to understand the core, because then you understand the value of desktop as a service and also the pros and cons of desktop as a service. And the core is the control plane, the broker. And the control plane and the broker is operated by a vendor or by a partner. It depends a little bit about the definition of desktop as a service. If desktop as a service is something Microsoft, Nutanix, Citrix, VMware, Amazon provides, then desktop as a service is the control plane. But if desktop as a service is something the managed service provider or the system integrator provides, then for them, the control plane is just, air quote, just an element in their offering. From my point of view, I'm focusing on desktop as a service as the control plane, the vendor, Nutanix, Citrix, VMware, blah, 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 are providing. And this control plane has certain functionality, like a web interface, a launchpad, a dashboard to access apps and desktops, to access it from an admin perspective. A broker, which directs users and admins to the right environment. A workload manager, which will power on, power off machines. A cloud connector service, which connects, for instance, to on-premises or public cloud environments, connected to the IaaS orchestrator. Of course, a strong connection to identity management and identity gateway. These are just examples of elements in the control plane. And the control plane will connect to public clouds, or public clouds, depending on what kind of broker or control plane you're using, and is able to connect to on-premises, depending on what kind of broker and service you're using. And yeah, I think it's super important to understand what is stored in a broker. Is the user data stored in a broker? No, it depends on the definition of user data, but in essence, the workload machines, the machines to run apps and desktops, these are like the engines to run apps and desktops. And these engines are running on premises or are running in public clouds, depending on what kind of broker, what kind of control plane, what kind of DaaS solution you're using. What I see a movement from VDI to desktop as a service. From a vendor perspective, I see clearly that movement. All the big and smaller vendors are in that direction, heading to as a service, where they operate a platform in a much faster update cycle than possible with software, leveraging public clouds, leveraging on-premises, but the control plane is managed by them. And sometimes it feels a little bit like this, right? This is the way some people perceive VDI and desktop as a service. The question often pops up is when to use VDI, when to use desktop as a service. VDI is not only, that's a good brief, I think it's good to briefly explain, like VDI is not only the desktop. In my context here, VDI is virtual apps and desktops. It's single user, multi-user, apps publishing, desktop publishing, all combined. The way how we use like apps and desktops for the past 20 years. On-premises control plane, on-premises workload machines, on-premises workers. That's what I mean with VDI. So don't be focused on only the VDI, the D from desktop, but as a whole. So when to use VDI or when to use desktop as a service? It's an important and good question to ask yourself. And I wrote a blog post. Yes, it's on Nutanix.com, but it's not targeted to Nutanix specifically. This content I think is really helpful for everyone active in virtual apps and desktops, active in end-user computing. On the left side, you see VDI. It's build your own. You need skills. It's an art to master, design, support, and update a VDI platform. You have like yearly manual update cycles, or maybe twice a year, but not super fast update cycle. It's tested. It's proven. It's not depending on internet connectivity. It's a capital consumption model. With fixed workload and VM cost as well. You have a local region, maybe you have a couple of regions or a couple of data centers, co-location data center applies. And it's also like fixed capacity. The capacity you have, like the amount of equipment you acquired is the capacity you can use to support virtual apps and desktops. On the right-hand side, it's a VDI platform consume as a service. That's the desktop as a service approach. Updates are happening much faster depending on platform, could be like on a weekly cycle. It's an emerging technology. It relies on internet connectivity. That's why I shared this DaaS core picture earlier. It's mostly an OPEX model, so you pay for usage, although some customers their budgeting and their cycle is more a CAPEX model, so they would like to see like an annual or 3-year contract, which is also possible with many. And flexible workloads, if it's public cloud or if it's on-premises, you can also leverage more fixed workloads VM cost. And of course, with public clouds, you have availability across the globe. You can leverage on-prem if the control plane is able to support hybrid. And it's much faster to deploy a platform like that. I've seen it myself. I've seen customers doing it myself. Doesn't mean like extreme fast. It depends what is part of the desktop as a service. If it's identity integration, network integration, if the application onboarding is automated or not. These 3 elements, so networking, identity, and apps, these 3 elements mostly dictate how much time it takes to stand up and run a desktop as a service platform. If you go to that blog post and you click on my name, you will see probably 9+ other blog posts. And one of the blog posts is called How to be Successful with Desktop as a Service. Again, that's more a general description. It's not a product pitch. It's just elements which will help you to be more successful with desktop as a service. A good second read as well. My point of view is that it's not VDI versus desktop as a service. I truly believe there is room and space for both, because there are use cases, unique use cases for one or the other. I also believe that with desktop as a service, the reality is hybrid. You want to use public cloud, you want to use on-premises, where it makes sense from a use case and business case perspective. Talking about the third item is hybrid infrastructure as a service. And when we as a team from VDI like a Pro ask the question, what is the biggest challenge or what are the biggest challenges in adopting public cloud? That is a question we asked in the past and we ask still today. And if you've not filled in the VDILikeAPro.com survey, please spend, I would say, 10 minutes of the time. That's the time it takes to fill in the survey. Yes, it's a lot of time, but you will gain also a lot of knowledge by filling in the survey. You will be triggered by the questions we ask. And also you will help the larger community by your point of view. Like, what is your view on the questions? So by filling in these questions, you will help yourself and you will help others. So if you're not fill in the survey yet, please do so after this event. Part of that survey was the question, and the answer on the question is, well, what is challenging with public cloud is cost, or creating a positive business case, is trust, and is performance. Why this slide? Why Outpost and Azure Stack Hub? Well, what I see is that also the large hyperscalers like Amazon with Outpost and Microsoft with Azure Stack Hub, they see the benefit and they see the use case of a hybrid infrastructure as a service. That's what Azure Stack Hub and Outpost are doing. And the other way around with Nutanix and with VMware, they are both creating a hybrid cloud approach, where they use the technology built and designed on-prem and connect that with public cloud, or even run in public clouds, and creating a hybrid cloud as well. So two different approaches, but interesting to see that all four are in the mode of building a hybrid infrastructure as a service. Why is that important? Because I truly believe that it's not a healthy thing to be a lemming and just follow whatever is happening. Just, I would say, think about requirements and use cases. Don't think that public cloud is the only way to go, or on-premises is the only way to go. So don't be a lemming. Cloud first doesn't mean cloud only. Again, the reality is hybrid. And when you watch the Disney Plus series Mandalorian, you will recognize this quote, "This is the way." Also be aware of the IT guy who won't be bothered with details. Yeah, sometimes it feels when you consume a service, could be a public cloud IaaS service, or when you consume a DaaS service. Yeah, you could say, well, I don't need to bother again, or I don't need to bother about these details. And in some degree that is correct, but it's still important to understand some sort of details. So one of the elements is this item, is what the experts won't tell you about storage performance in public cloud. I did a couple of benchmarks some months ago. I used Intel IO meter with a VDI profile, which is 80% writes and 20% reads, random writes, random reads. And I run that VDI benchmark tool on 3 different cloud providers using Azure standard SSD, managed disks, AWS EBS, and GCP standard SSD. Don't be fooled by the name SSD in whatever the vendor is calling it. SSD, we as geeks, as technologists, attach SSD with performance, but SSD can also be just a medium. And that is the case with Azure standard SSD. If you look at the number, you see 600. That is 600 IOPS in that particular single VM, which is not a lot, to be honest. If you look at EBS, Amazon is 3,000, and GCP, there's burst capacity from a storage perspective with a default sort of instance type. It's 4,000 IOPS sustained and 15,000 in burst capacity. So you see differences here in just from a storage perspective. And why is this important? Because storage has a huge impact in user experience. It's not the only element. Of course, it's CPU cores, CPU clock speed, the amount of RAM, networking infrastructure, both from endpoint to VM and from VM back to backend services. It might be GPU cores, but also GPU RAM. All these elements combined define performance of a PC or virtual PC in cloud, or a virtual workstation in cloud. But storage is for sure an important element. So understand the storage impact of that. And then yes, of course, app layering with different vendors, including MSI App Attach, user profile disk, so containerizing the user profile with different vendors. Ephemeral disk might help, or sometimes might fix the storage performance issues, but that's what I want to share, like understand app layering, user profiles, ephemeral disk where it applies, and also applies understand the details around storage and public cloud. And then you will see there are always pros and cons of on-prem and public cloud, not only from a performance perspective, as I briefly attached, but also from a different angle. It could be cost, could be creating a business case, could be legal or regulation, could be knowledge, could be trust, could be different reasons to go for left or right or left. And that's part of, yeah, your task, my task is to explain the pros and cons as step 2. And step 1 is understand what the challenge, the idea, the sometimes problem is, and how you can solve that challenge, idea, and problem. And sometimes you can be solved with like a modern data center. Sometimes it can be solved with on-prem. Sometimes it can be solved with both. And then you select and pick and choose the right one. Fourth and last one in this list of 4 is remote user experience and benchmarking. It's great to see many vendors in this space with great dashboards and great insights to manage and monitor user experience and performance of the system itself. It's great to see that more and more focus is on the end user, starting with the end user and how they perceive performance, because that is super important. This question for sure will pop up and has popped up. How much bandwidth is required for Microsoft or VMware or Citrix or Nutanix in your virtual app and desktop environment? And if I pause for like half a second and ask this question, what is the response? Well, yes, it depends. And it depends. Often we want to have a white paper or a slide like this, and it's not about this slide, but more like around the mindset of this slide. Because in this slide you will see the different application scenarios and the different network scenarios. And you will see, okay, I have this application, so I need this bandwidth or this amount of bandwidth, which is what we as an industry did for many, many, many years and still do. Or you look at this graph and you say, well, based on this graph, I need this amount of bandwidth or this amount of CPU or this amount of GPU or this amount of RAM, things like that. But what is missing is more context. Because if the context is, well, you have telemetry data on the bottom and you have user experience data, and it could be a video like you see here. These two Death Stars moving is the real user experience captured on a physical monitor and attached to the telemetry data. If that is combined, that is extremely powerful, combining real user experience data and telemetry data, and use that to give answers, to provide insights about, well, how much bandwidth is needed. Well, it depends. Well, look at this picture. This is the user experience you will get in this kind of context. And that's, in my personal view, is the approach we should take to well, to be better in remote user experience benchmarking and monitoring. And like Benny and Chris, they created this quote, our job is to de-suckify the user experience. And I added managing expectations, use practices, processes, and the right new tools to deliver a great user experience and to de-suckify the user experience is our goal as IT professionals. So focus on the user experience is key element. So to summarize, how to become Q of James Bond is start with why. Understand your customers, your partners' use case, ideas, and challenges. Understand the core of desktop as a service with a different mindset. Might be a different mindset for you, for your colleagues, for your customers, with different skills and different training. And maybe a different portfolio if you're owner of a portfolio and you're focusing on-premises only. Maybe it's ready and maybe you need to be ready for that change also from a portfolio perspective. Understand the pros and cons of on-prem versus public cloud. Keep apps close to data. That's what we in end-user computing are doing for many, many, many years, because that will give the best application performance if app and data are close to each other. So understand that also in the on-premises and public cloud context. Understand sizing and performance and also understand the details. That's why I briefly highlighted that as well. And understand telemetry data plus user input is great user experience monitoring. With that, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. If you have any questions, feedback, if I can help you with your personal challenges, if you want to be part of a community, if there's anything I can help you, please reach out to me. Happy to do so. And thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.
Ruben, thank you so much. That concludes the first talk for today. You can now jump to Hilko Lantinga's session on gaining maximum performance with Windows 10. It's starting at 9:35 Eastern Time. This should give you a few minutes to stretch your legs, get that coffee, or visit our virtual expo. If you'd like to find or post messages around this event on social media, you can use the hashtag VDI Summit. And my colleague Blair has actually just started to share a picture from his work from home environment. Maybe you can respond with yours. Would be fun to see where you're hanging out today. Of course, I'll upload a picture of my garage studio as well, and I'll see you in a bit.